what he thought was vulgar, primitive, and depraved in his origins. He had seen another summer under in Kansas City, Missouri, and on September 5th, in the year 1881, he was 34 years old. He had invited his older brother, Alexander Franklin James, who went by Frank, over from their mother's farm in Kearney for the occasion, and dined on jackrabbit, boiled potatoes and onions, and hickory nut cake. Then everyone, excepting Frank, autographed the night air with magnesium sparklers that were a gift from Jesse Edwards James, a 6-year-old who thought his name was Tim. Frank presented his younger brother with a pair of pink coral cufflinks, and the two played cribbage as Z tucked in the children, and after she retired for the evening, they rode a mule-powered streetcar downtown, Frank cleaning his nails on one side of the aisle, as on the other, Jesse slumped down in a frock coat and talked compulsively about stopping the Chicago and Alton Railroad at Blue Cut. On the following morning, Frank rode east, and Jesse frittered that Tuesday and part of the next day through. He picked coffee beans from a canning jar and ground them fine as coal dust. He soaped his saddle and tack, and glossed the rings and curb with pork lard. He carried water and cordwood. He tied onto his saddle horn a burlap sack that bore the red trademark of grain merchandisers in St. Louis. His 2-year-old daughter swept his light brown beard with a doll brush. He dressed in a white linen shirt and gray wool Sunday clothes, tied a blue bandana around his neck, and climbed into a soiled Confederate officer's coat that was rich with the odors of manual labor and was heavy enough to snap the pegs off a closet rack. He lunched on okra soup and kissed Z goodbye, then rode eastward on back streets and cowpaths. He urged his horse in the direction of Independence and into woods that were giving up their greens to autumn gold and brown. Jackson County, east of the Kansas City limits at that time, enclosed a region called the Cracker Neck that contained ramshackle farms and some erstwhile Confederate Army guerrillas who routinely sided with the James Gang and provided seclusion to the outlaws following robberies. Within the region was Glendale, where 2 years earlier the gang had rifled a Chicago and Alton Railroad express car, and close to Glendale was Independence and the cooperage where Frank James squatted among the stave piles in back, eating a cucumber sandwich under the afternoon sun. Frank was 38 years old, but looked a homely 50. He was 5 feet 10 inches tall at a time when such height was above average, and weighed about 150 pounds. He had ears nearly the size of his hands, and a very large, significant nose that seemed to hook and clamp his light brown mustache. He was a stern and very constrained man. He could have been a magistrate, an evangelist, a banker who farmed on weekends. Rectitude and resolution influenced his face and comportment. Scorn and even malevolence could be read in his green eyes. Frank untethered his mount and swung up, and the two brothers ambled onto the eastward road. The James brothers pursued eccentric routes, Jesse weaving right or left in his boredom, bending extravagantly from his saddle as he steered, shouting questions and assessments across the open to Frank. They meshed inside the woods, Frank ducking under an overhead bough that whopped dust from his coat shoulder, Jesse yanking his horse right and into a coulee where it noisily thrashed fallen leaves. Ahead was brown shale and green ferns and humus where the sun was forbidden, and then 2 naked trees connected by 20 feet of hemp rope, to which had been reined a considerable number of horses. Here 13 men squatted with coffee and idled or cradled shotguns. Croppers and clerks and hired hands, aged in their late teens and 20s, wearing patched coveralls and wrinkled wool trousers and foul-looking suit coats that exposed their wrists. They were hooligans mainly, boys with vulgar features and sullen eyes and barn-red faces. Robert Woodson Height and his simple younger brother Clarence were cousins from Adairville, Kentucky. Dick Little, Jim Cummins, Ed Miller,